Hi, it's Miss Ann from the Boys and Girls Club. I hope everyone's doing well. I miss you all. Today I'm just reading a story for you to all enjoy, and if you have requests, you can send them to us so we can maybe read your request. Today I'm reading Curious George Visits the Library from Margret H.A.Rey. It's a scholastic book. This is George. He was a good little monkey and always very curious. Today, George and his friend, the man with the yellow hat, were at the library. They all decided to go to the library today. George had never been to the library before. He had never seen so many books before either. Everywhere he looked, people were reading. Some people read quietly to themselves. But in the children's room, the librarian was reading out loud. It was story hour time. Many of you have probably been to the library story hours when things were open and we could go places. It was story hour. George loved stories. He sat down with a group of children to listen. The librarian was reading a book about a bunny. George likes bunnies. Behind the librarian was a book about a dinosaur. George liked dinosaurs even more. He hoped she would read it next. But next the librarian read a book about a train. George tried to sit quietly and waited for the dinosaur book to be read. But sometimes it's hard for a monkey to sit still. Sometimes when we're sitting on the rug, when I was reading stories, we'd get a little restless too. That happens to all of us. When the librarian started a story about jungle animals, George could not wait any longer. He had to see the dinosaur book. He tiptoed closer. "Look, a monkey!" shouted a girl. The librarian put her finger to her lips. "We must be quiet. Everyone can hear us," she said nicely. "But there's a monkey," said the boy. The librarian nodded and smiled. She agreed. When she finished reading the jungle story, the librarian reached for the dinosaur book. Where did it go, and where was George? You can't see George now, and you can't see the book. What did he do? George was all ready to take the dinosaur book home and read it with his friend when another book caught his eye. The book was about trucks. George wanted to take that one home too. And then there was a book about elephants. George loved elephants. He added that to his pile too. George found so many good books. He soon had more than he could carry. He leaned against the shelf to rest. Squeak went the shelf. "Shh," said the man. Squeak went the shelf again, and it moved. Why, it wasn't really a shelf after all. George had found a special cart for carrying all these books he had. What luck! Now George could carry all the books he wanted. He rolled the cart between the shelves and stacked up books about boats and kites and baking cakes. He climbed higher to reach books about cranes and planes. Look at all the books he has now. I don't know how he's going to get all of them out. At last, George had all the books he could handle. He couldn't wait to head home and start reading. And right in front of him was a ramp leading to the door. George was curious. Could he roll the cart all the way home? Down the ramp George went. The cart rolled faster and faster. "Stop!" a library volunteer shouted. "Come back here with my cart." But George was too excited to listen. The cart was picking up speed, and George was having a lot of fun. He's going to roll right down the hill with all these books in his cart. until crash! George and the cot ran smack into the shelf of encyclopedias. Books flew up in the air, and so did George. He landed in a big pile right between O and P in the library. Oh my goodness, look at the mess he has made. Would you like to take that home? Those books home with you? The volunteer asked George. Then he took George to a special desk and helped him to get his very own library card. George was holding his brand new card when his friend arrived with a stack of books of his own. There you are, George, he said. I see you are all ready to check out. George and his friend gave their books to the librarian. She smiled when she saw George's pile. I was wondering where this dinosaur book went, she said. This is one of my favorites, too. The librarian stamped the books and handed them back to George. With his books under one arm, George waved goodbye to the volunteer, the librarian, and the children from Story Hour. Come see us again, George, the librarian said, waving back. Enjoy your books. And he did. The end. Hope you enjoyed this book and have a nice day.